John, does Biden, as a Washington insider, Sunday show fixture, a guy who has long-standing relationship with journalists, have an advantage that, Kathleen Sebelius or Tim Kaine would not have had?
He does with reporters. We all know him. We've watched him. And also he talks. And we love people who talk. And he talks at length. And he's intellectually honest about some things. So he'll talk about things that he may not even agree with. So reporters like him because he's accessible. Now, of course, that's the problem for him as well. He's sometimes too accessible, sometimes goes on too long. But he will have an advantage.
I have the suspicion that may change. But Keli Goff, he does sometimes talk himself into trouble. And so conservative radio hosts, and you've seen it on cable too, have been recycling those comments when he called Barack Obama clean and articulate, when he made fun of the Indian accents at the 7-Eleven. Is that getting too much attention?
Well, I think everything's getting too much attention. I mean, if we're analyzing what people wrote in kindergarten about wanting to grow up and be an astronaut or a president, then I think that anything's going to be fair game.
But the man could be vice president of the United States.
The other thing, though, is I think, adding on to what John said, is he's intellectually honest, known for being that. He's also known for being really funny. So, the pros and cons of that is that I think the American public is so sick of seeing so many stilted people, and the media too, that occasionally it's nice and refreshing to see someone who shoots from the hip, even if they occasionally misfire.
Now, Joe Biden is a serious and experienced lawmaker, but is the media establishment sort of giving something of a pass to a member of the political establishment?
I don't think there's anything doubt about it. When his name was picked, I know all of Washington expected this, but being a provincial from San Francisco, I was surprised. I felt the way I did when I watched the last Sopranos episode. I'd been waiting for this big build-up. I thought Hillary Clinton made sense. She had almost, she had about 18 million people who voted for her.
So you were not excited by the prospect of Joe Biden?
I know he's
qualified. You may not be the target audience.
I know he's qualified, and I understand. I'm not the target audience, and I understand that he's a good man. But he came in 5th place in Iowa. So you say no to the person who got 18 million votes, and yes to the guy who came in 5th in Iowa.
The whole way that this was announced, with the week of suspense and the 3 a.m. text messages. In fact, my sources say that you went to sleep with your BlackBerry. Did that tick off a lot of the journalists?
Well, it ticked off those journalists who didn't get the news at the right time. And, the journalists were a little ticked off by their editors, because what happened is if you were covering this story, you got an email about every 10 seconds for the week leading up saying, oh, it's going to be Hillary, it's going to be Bai, it's going to be Sasquatch. And you had to go figure out if this was the case. And then you had to go annoy everybody working in the Obama campaign saying, I know this is my 90th phone call, but when's this going to be announced? Who's it going to be? I'm hearing it's this. And so it created this ridiculous kind of pantomime that went on for a week. And that wasn't necessarily Senator Obama's fault.
John McCain released an ad at 3 a.m. this morning.
About 3 a.m. The phone rings, the ads, the texts.
And that ad is about Hillary wasn't picked as the running mate because she spoke the truth in the primaries about Barack Obama. I don't even think they've paid 12 cents to put this on the air, and it's getting all this free airtime. Should we be giving media attention to ads that are basically produced for us to cover them on the news?
Sure, especially if they're good ads. It's actually good. I mean, I think it's a well-done ad. And it clearly was something that was going for a very specific block of an audience. We're heading into the we're here at the Democratic National Convention.
But then we're doing their job for them. We are giving them free advertising that usually costs millions of dollars to do a serious buy.
This is true, but again,
that doesn't bother you.
It's a good. I don't think it's up to say whether it's to bother me or not. We're here to cover news, and it's news. The fact that there's this group of voters up for grabs and someone's targeting them is a news story.
The usual refrain about the VP, warm bucket of spit, and all that. Hasn't all that changed because of Dick Cheney and his role in the Bush administration?
I don't think it matters to people that much who they'll vote for with vice president, but it was important with Obama because it got us to see his first big decision.
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
How we handle it.
That's right. One last thing, too. I think it's really important to note the clean and articulate remark that you mentioned. I think what picking Biden shows is that Barack Obama doesn't have a chip on his shoulder about race. I think that's what it reinforces, which is, I think, an important thing for a specific group of voters who may be concerned about that.
Let me turn to when Biden came out and gave that stem winder of a speech yesterday. He talked about sitting down at the kitchen table, and then he made, of course, the crack to John McCain has 7 kitchen tables to choose from. Have the media just sort of gobbled up this whole attack line about McCain, and he's wealthy, and he's out of touch, and he has all these houses? Are we sort of carrying the weight of the Obama campaign on this point?
Well, it's the conversation of the moment. There are ads. The senators talking about it. Now we have to distinguish when you say the senators. Senator Obama's talked about it. Senator Biden has talked about it.
It's got more attention than a possible U.S. pullout from Iraq in 2011.
Well, Perhaps, indeed, but that's because we're on the eve of a convention here, and we'll go back and forth. Senator Biden has had lots of instances, little slip-ups he's made that have gotten lots of attention. This is kind of the crazy cycle we're in right now. It's not the most serious story at the moment, but there are serious issues underneath it. People say the economy is their number one issue.
Right.
This gets at that, so it's not all frivolity.
Is it a revealing issue to talk about for journalists?
Well, everyone can count to one, which is the answer for most of us. I just think it's a fun little thing. The way that we've overcovered the Veep stakes, the little stories like the houses, people hate us for it and they tune in for it. It's sort of like the O.J. trial.
But didn't liberals cry foul, Keli Goff, when 4 years ago it was Republicans taking shots at John Kerry's houses and Teresa's wealth and all that, saying this was just silly and trying to paint him as a windsurfer? Now it's flipped.
But part of it, too, is I think McCain hasn't helped himself. If we go back to some of his recent comments and some of his surrogates' recent comments, I mean, you had the Phil Gramm debacle, then you had John McCain saying in a forum on Faith that $5 million is what constitutes having any amount of wealth, and then you discover that the man doesn't know how many houses he has. I think those three things combined result in a news story, a very
Absolutely
valid one.
fair game for the media?
Absolutely fair game
We're
for the
going to hear
media.
about it for the next 2 weeks?
I think we're going to hear about it for the next several months.
Well, we'll probably hear about it at the Republican convention next week, but we've got a lot more to do first here in Denver. Keli Goff, Debra Saunders, John Dickerson, thanks very much for joining us.